Hey, we've got Toby here as well. Hey, Toby.
Yep.
Hang on.
Toby is
Unmuted. Hello. I just hijacked the occasion, and you will be very proud of me. I got this one for my my Cavalan thing. I'm just trying the Cavalan with it for a couple of hours later, but really good. So I never got the cigar right, you see. Almost.
We'll get there. We'll get there.
This is beautiful. I love this so much. Thank you.
It's a good choice.
It is. Yeah, it is.
I think it's an excellent one.
No, there's not many of those left, so enjoy.
Anyway, let's start. Thank you all for joining and for buying the Nicaragua sample pack on the C.Gars website. That's why you're all here. The sample pack included the Petit Corona, the Box Press Robusto, and the Box Press Toro, I believe. We've got Sam here from Davidoff to talk us through the difference between box pressing and not box pressing, I guess. And actually, the Davidoff Nicaragua was also the first project where Sam really was involved in when he joined Davidoff, if I'm correct. For those who don't know me, my name is Roy. I'm the managing director for Davidoff in the UK. And Sam, if you can introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm Sam Rueter. I'm a global brand ambassador for David, but also head of product development, working closely with our master blenders in Dominican Republic and in Honduras.
Quite a job.
Yes.
So Davidoff Nicaragua. So as I mentioned, there was one of the, or if not the first cigar you were involved in to Davidoff. So was it your idea to start something more on the Nicaragua side of things?
Well, you know, how can I say? So we were a little bit analyzing our assortment, right? And basically, if you looked at the time before Nicaragua, you had like mainly all our white rings, and we got a lot, sometimes rejection from consumers saying, oh, you know, you guys are too mild, you know, it's not strong enough, and so on. And we were thinking, okay, so let's push the brand, or let's take it one step further by launching a new Davidoff pillar, you know, with the black ring on it, and really to have this difference between white and Nicaragua at the time. And that was basically in 2011 that we had the idea. Why? Because Nicaragua was kind of very much speeding up or trendy in the market. And we thought, okay, let's jump on the train and do a Davidoff Nicaragua cigar. And then again, you know, we said like, okay, Davidoff is a brand, it is not an origin. So as Zino traveled the world, buying different tobaccos or visiting different countries, we felt the same. You know, Davidoff is not only Dominican Republic, but we can go to Nicaragua, we can use Nicaraguan tobacco and do something very special with it. And that was basically when I then started in product development back in 2012. I got the cigar brief really I got the task to create the Davidoff Nicaragua cigar, and we were very soon clear that we want to do a puro, so 100% Nicaragua tobacco. But it wasn't that easy, I have to say.
Was it difficult to convince the people in the head office, I guess, to make something maybe a bit more bolder than maybe our classic range?
You know, so that was under the time of when Mr. Heuskat joined, together with Charles, my boss at the time. So there was like an open mentality, you know. I believe that, I don't know, in 2009, for example, nobody would have dared to do a Davidoff Nicaragua cigar. And so here we have been ready, let's say in headquarters, but to convince the master blenders in the factory to make 100% Nicaragua puro. That was the challenge, because they said, look, but why? You know, Dominican tobacco is as good as Nicaragua tobacco. And I said, basically, I had to convince them that you know, it's not about us, it's about you guys, the consumer, and we really want to go craft a Davidoff Nicaragua cigar that is authentic Nicaragua, and not something like a mix that people would say, oh, you know what, Davidoff, they tried, but they didn't achieve the goal. You know, it's just like kind of another Davidoff cigar. And that was basically really the challenge, and it took us 1 year in terms of product development to get the right blend. And also I did some external tastings with external tasting panels just to get an opinion, because we haven't really used we have not been used to Nicaraguan tobacco. And so it was a long journey, But at the end, I always say, the good things take a little bit longer, and now very proud again to enjoy the Davidoff Nicaragua cigars. Yeah.
So that was quite important for you to have a cigar which was 100% Nicaraguan.
Yes.
Did you also try blends which had a mixture of Dominican and Nicaraguan?
Oh yes, I have plenty of those still left. No, because we had, when analyzing the market from Nicaragua, basically. There aren't a lot of puro Nicaragua. Sometimes there is like an Ecuador wrapper or some other parts tobacco from the world. And we said let's go, because we knew the benchmark was very high, and we said, okay, let's do a puro which is kind of a little bit more unique, and again, and having this kind of innovation that we Davidoff are standing for. And that was the idea, to launch the puro, and just to make sure that we are kind of a bit different than the competitors.
But Davidoff grows tobacco in Honduras and in Dominican Republic, and at the time I believe not in Nicaragua. So how did you approach partners for the purchasing of the tobacco?
Well, you know that the tobacco, the world of tobacco, especially amongst manufacturers, is very small. So everybody knows each other, and of course with Henke Kellner being there such a long time, he has of course good connections in Nicaragua, where we then found the supplier. That we basically bought the tobacco. We had some tobacco in stock already. For instance, the wrapper. The wrapper is 10 years old, and basically we then bought other tobaccos, and especially from the regions, which I will explain. Maybe I can explain it here. All right, can I share the screen or not?
Of course, can. Yeah.
Because it says host disabled.
Let me.
Or if not, I can just send you the presentation, and maybe you can share it.
You should be able to do it now.
Okay. Because I prepared. Yes, perfect. Share.
Perfect.
You can see my screen, right?
Yeah.
So I've prepared you a presentation just for you to get to know these regions we are talking about. When you call the typical tobacco for Nicaragua is always called according to the village or region it's coming from. So we have, in the case of Davidoff Nicaragua, we have in the filler, we have the typical Esteli tobacco. Of course, Esteli is the main capital of cigar crafting in Nicaragua. And also giving you a kind of a bitter stimulation. It's also spicy, peppery. And we have in the filler, we have a 20% Esteli Visus and a quarter of a leaf Esteli Ligero, just to give a little a punch to the cigar. Then you can see Condega would be the other region, which is very well known. Condega, Condega is a tobacco that is kind of Swedish. And we took here 50% of Ligero, so again, a little bit in the grade of the leaf, higher up to give you this kind of spice, strength to the cigar. And then we have the Ometepe. Ometepe is very special. It's a volcanic island where they started growing tobacco only in 1994, and even they do twice a year harvests, which is quite unique. Ometepe is kind of sweet and spicy. And then Jalapa, the region Jalapa, where it's close to the border of Honduras on top, gives you especially binder and filler, and that's all binder and wrapper, and that's why we're using Jalapa Seco as binder and also the wrapper from Jalapa. So you see, those are kind of the regions in Nicaragua, and I prepared you a little overview of the what is the stimulation on the tongue. I think it's always important that whenever you taste a cigar, take your time and basically think about what are the aromas, what is the stimulation of the cigar. And here again, you can see Jalapa is giving you sweetness and goes a little bit to the bitter area. You see, you have Condega here. Condega, you can't see it here. Condega is giving you a sweet and a bit of saltiness and also some wooden aroma. Esteli goes straight to the bitter, so more the spiciness, and then you have the Ometepe, very nice sweet and acid. So basically, you have all the stimulation on the tongue. exactly. Please let me know if you have any question, right? I'm just going to explain you a little bit Davidoff Nicaragua. And so when we launched in 2013, we had the Petit Corona, Robusto, and the Toro, and the Diadema we added a little bit later. And you see the Robusto is also in tubes available. And always, you know, you have to think when you create a new line, what you want to do is you want to have a cigar for 20 minutes pleasure, you want to have a cigar for 45 minutes and one for 60 minutes. So basically, you have kind of a range of the cigars, very important. And then in 2016, we launched the box press cigar, which I can explain in a bit. So if you think of Davidoff Nicaragua as general, you have this sweet and bitter taste stimulation. You have the element fire also in there. We had Taste the Elements campaign last year, where the fire was one of the main characters about Nicaragua because of the more than 40 volcanoes, and also this kind of spiciness from the earth, which makes it kind of special.
So you mentioned with the non-box press cigars, let's call it so, you said there's a quarter of a leaf, and does it really make an impact, a quarter of a leaf, to the taste?
Yes. Yeah.
How much percent would you say?
The quarter of a leaf is around is 10%. For example, so in case of Esteli Ligero, 10%. Yes, it makes a difference. It's kind of the spiciness, but there is another tobacco called the Green Socket. This tobacco is from Pennsylvania, and it's basically the strongest tobacco in the world in terms of nicotine content. And this tobacco, you can only put maximum 10%, but not even a quarter of a leaf. You even need to have smaller pieces of a leaf in a cigar because it's too strong. So even if we talk about 10%, it can have a huge impact on the taste of the cigar.
Okay. Can you explain a bit about the difference between the normal rolled cigars and the box press cigars?
Yes, so I have then also prepared the presentation. Right, so okay. All right. So box pressing, I saw already the question from Tom about box pressing. So box pressing in general, before I explain a little bit the process, is very well recognized in the US, but in Europe and Asia, we're still a little bit of struggling to really get the cigar aficionado to try the box press. Why? Because especially when I travel in Germany, they often tell me like, oh, you know, box press for us is kind of a cheap cigar. I said, but why cheap? And they said, no, because it's square and cigar should be round. I said, okay, yeah. But if you look at the process, which I will explain in a minute, it's actually the process is more intense in labor. It's more labor intense than even doing the round cigar. So if you look at it, you have, or let's say the benefits of it, you have like an easy draw on it. The smoke is a little bit less hotter than round cigar. What I think what is interesting, so if you look at the process, which I can show you here, you roll the cigar normally like round, but you take half a filler leaf out of the cigar. Why? Because you need to give space for box pressing, but actually box pressing is actually the wrong word, because you can see in the picture it's actually mold pressing. So we have these wooden molds that we place the cigar in there round with half a filler tobacco less in the cigar, and then press it for 2 hours and then turn it 180 degrees and press it again. And that is basically when you enjoy a box press cigar, especially the Davidoff box press versus the round cigar, you can feel that the draw is so much easier and you have more participation of the wrapper because they have less filler tobaccos. And I think that for me is already a very interesting effect about box press cigars. And having, so you can see on those wooden trays, you have these dividers. And what we have learned from Arvo Cinco, because Arvo Cinco Dominicano was our first box press, when we box press in a room with high humidity, the cigars overnight turn round again. And that was something that, of course, we learned. And now we are box pressing and also ringing the cigars in a colder room. Whenever you go visiting our factory, you see all the man or the lady sitting there with the hat on, almost like, you know, for them it's of course very cold, but I'm talking here about 20-22 degrees Celsius. Yeah, and this is basically, you can see it's a little bit the difference between box press and round cigars. But again, still a little bit struggling to get the recognition from the cigar aficionados.
Box pressing is mainly done in Nicaragua, I believe. You don't really see it much in the Dominican Republic or Honduras.
Well, box press from the story here was basically from Cuba, right? Because you know, to save a little bit space in transportation, the boxes were quite narrow on the cigar and basically turned out to be box pressed. That's why also the name box press. But again, box press for us is more mold press to make really sure that the cigar keeps the square shape of it.
Okay. So you said so you box press it for 2 hours, then you turn it 180 degrees, and then for another 2 hours.
Exactly.
And then it goes to the cooling room.
Well, you do this in the cooling room. So
okay.
This process is done in the cooling room, and also to apply the ring is done in the cooling room to make sure, you know, even if you put the ring on it, to make sure it really stays square, you know. And yeah, so we had to learn a little bit with Avo Synchro Dominicana, but now we are very well. We have the expertise now.
Very well first. Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Is the blend the same between the two cigars?
Not exactly. So for the box press, we felt like a little bit increasing the grades of the tobaccos. So you have the same blend, but the grades are a little bit higher, so giving you like a kind of extra spiciness to it. But I feel like always like with the easy draw that the box press has, yes, you can recognize a little bit the strength, the increase in strength, but not that much. You know, it's not like really stronger than the round cigars.
So so it was released in 2013, and it what was the initial feedback from consumers and from the industry?
Well, so we have been, of course, very, let's say, not nervous, but we have been like so curious, like, oh my God, how are our cigars like appreciating the cigar, right? And then we have been so glad and really happy and satisfied when we got all the great ratings. I even have. Yeah,
they were rated 95 by Cigar Journal and Cigar Aficionado.
Yes, exactly. I have it here, I believe.
I'll be further down.
Yeah, exactly here. So you have like it was the top 3 cigar from Cigar Aficionado, which was, you know, Cigar Aficionado always rated us very badly. And then here we got the top 3 cigar of the year 2013. We got 95 from Cigar Journal. Even on the box pressed Toro, we got 97 points. I believe that was the highest cigar rated from them. Amateur de Cigar gave us best cigar in 2013. And then here again, just to also visualize you the difference between the round and the box press, similarities, bitter and sweet taste, but tobaccos from the same regions, 100% Dominican, the Nicaraguan puro, and also again the depth of quality and craftsmanship. So even if people say, oh, you know, for me it looks a little bit like cheap, it's not true. It's even more labor intense. And the difference is a little bit more spicy, a little bit more intense, increased pepper notes. We took also the wrapper, we took a little bit higher from the grade from the plant, so giving you a little bit more darker color to it. And then the different air intake generates more intense aroma of it. I don't know, I would love to know maybe your opinion about box press. Are you appreciating box press cigars, or you stay with the round cigars? That would be very interesting to hear from you.
I think Tom, he had a few comments. Yeah.
Yeah, Tom said, I love box pressed.
We can't hear you, Tom. It's not on mute, but maybe your microphone is not working.
You might have muted me.
Oh, there we are.
Okay, cool. Yeah, not only is it the draw is great on box press cigars. I really love them from that perspective. Although sometimes you smoke them a little bit quickly because of that. The mouth feels really good as well. So like, it's not quite. I like big ring gauge cigars, so it's not quite natural to have your mouth like that all the time. Good job, it's a video call. You can see that. But for the box press, it just it fits. I smoke like that, so it fits beautifully in my hand. But it fits. It gives a good mouthfeel as well. And but most of all, it's the draw. And I actually really like the look of it as well. I don't think they look less expensive at all. I think they kind of look a little bit more innovative. And I often go for box press cigars. I think I'm going to have an Avo box press after this one.
Good
choice. You had another question about. He asked what tobacco, Nicaraguan tobacco, do you use, or where do we buy it from?
So basically, the region I explained, and one of our suppliers is Placense. That is correct. That we're buying, because what we want to make sure is that basically, you know, always the supplier sharing the same values, the same also family, you know, behind, and families know each other very well, Henki and Nestor. And I think that is also something that is very important for us. You know, we don't buy tobacco from anywhere, and those tobacco is always then exclusive to us. But then again, what is very important, that although we buy the tobacco, we still do fermentation in-house, applying all our quality standards from fermentation to aging, and then to the tables of the cigar rollers. It is always very important for us. So we don't buy the tobacco like already ready done, but we always apply our quality standards on it, on the processing.
So you can explain about the different vitolas in the Nicaragua and the box pressed as well, no, the Robusto and the Toro, but there was also a 6x60.
There was exactly. There was a 6x60 also but we took it out of the market because, you know, the 60x6 is maybe doing well in the US, but if you look at the rest of the world, it's not so well appreciated. So that's why we said, okay, we tried it, and then we took it off of the market. Yeah.
Because in 2018 it was rated number 6, I think, in Cigar Journal.
The 60x6.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And then the year after it was discontinued. I had an upset consumer this afternoon who begged me to bring the 6x60 back.
Yeah, but this is always, like, for us, it's always a tough decision, you know, because of course, like, you never want to discontinue a cigar, right? But then again, you have many cigars in the assortment. You know, the retailer doesn't have a lot of, or the space is not getting bigger, you know. And then if you look at sales and you say, okay, we need to discontinue some cigars, and then unfortunately it was a 60x6. Yes.
Are there any plans of adding different vitolas to the Nicaragua line?
At the moment, not. You know, we also have the Primeros Nicaragua, the normal and the Maduro one. We have the Cigarillos as well. And but at the moment there is no other plan to add a format on the lineup.
Or to do anything with barrel aging?
Barrel aging with the Nicaragua tobacco could be very interesting, I agree, because we have, remember, for the Winston Churchill late hour, we have the Condega tobacco actually in barrels that we barrel age with Scottish whiskey, exactly, Tobias. and here, you know, in the blend of Winston Churchill, it's working very well because you have all these 4 different origins, you know. But maybe you can try with Nicaragua. I never tried. It could be a good idea, you know.
Because, for example, with the Camacho Nicaraguan barrel aged, where we do an event next month, where that some of that tobacco is aged in Nicaraguan rum barrels. So yes. It's kind of a proven on that side, maybe.
Yeah, and I think if you think about Nicaragua, you know, it's also like kind of this coffee, the rum, you know. I think, and even if you look at the pairing, you know, like a nice Flor de Caña with a little bit of spiciness, no added sugar, there's a little bit natural components about it. I think it's working very well with it, and I agree. Maybe Davidoff Nicaragua, if you do a barrel, it should be maybe more based on rum cask than on whiskey cask, you know?
Yeah, you know, it's actually rum cask, yeah. Because as you kind of mentioned at the beginning, the preferred pairing combination for the Nicaragua is Floricana, 12-year-old. So that could be. I know Matteo. He's the brand ambassador for Floricana here in the UK. He's on the call.
Ah, great.
We probably like that.
So maybe I can explain a little bit the rum. I just explained it briefly, you know.
I'm not sure if he can speak. I know he was at. He had to take his dog to the vet, so I'm not quite sure if
Okay.
he's probably just listening in.
Okay.
But yeah, we'll try to get him on as well for the Camacho Nicaraguan barrel aged next month. We'll try to get someone for Floricana on as well to explain that side of it.
Okay.
That virtual Herf sampler went live yesterday. The stock was just receipted in. So if you go to the virtual Herf samplers on the C.Gars website, they're now listed and available.
That's the first time available in the UK as well, so that should be a good one. So we already kind of talked about the different regions of Nicaragua. You know, Jalapa, Esteli, Ometepe. So which tobacco does Davidoff use the most in their cigars? Not necessarily in the Nicaragua, but in general and in other blends.
I believe it's the Esteli and the Condega tobacco. Because even if you mix those two tobaccos with each other, it gives you this nice kind of spices and sweetness that is very well working very well in the blend, you know. And so those two tobaccos are very much the ones that we're using most, especially I would say number one Esteli and then Condega. Yeah.
And is Placentia the only company you buy tobacco from, or are there also other companies, more boutique, let's say?
No, as to my knowledge today, it's only Placencia. Yes. I mean, for Nicaragua, of course, we have then.
Nicaragua, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah.
I think Daniel, you had a question. Daniel Harris. I'll ask the question on his behalf then. How have measures around COVID affected production, and how do you think disruption around the pandemic might affect consumers in the future?
Mm-hmm. So, well, we had, so basically Honduras and Dominican Republic, where our factories are, we had to also close them down. Honduras was closed, I believe, 6 weeks. Dominican Republic a little bit less. But still, we have been one of the first ones in Dominican Republic to reopen the factory. And so we had all kinds of visits from the military, from the politics, from the health government. You know, they all had to, basically, we had like been the pilot project, and they had all been watching or controlling what we are doing. And we had really like, you know, we had the space between each other. We reduced a bit the people working there. We had everywhere to wash your hands, and we were very careful about it. And it worked very well. What let's say disruption around the pandemic, I think, like, I don't know, I now got a lot of times the feedbacks that we are in a very good place, that we have cellophane on our cigars, you know, which I basically, of course, cellophane is protecting your cigar. It's letting the cigar age a little bit less quicker than without. It has some advantage, but I would never think about as it now with the crisis, you know, that if you think about hygienic reasons, yes, cellophane does make sense. But I don't know, maybe Paul, do you have any feedback from retail that people now are like paying more attention to cellophane cigars versus not? Or?
Well, I think there's a lot more acceptance of cellophane on cigars than in the past, because people's backgrounds were generally buying Cuban cigars, which very few of them are cellophane. So.
Okay.
Can you explain a bit more about the purpose of cellophane? Also, one of the reasons is to also prevent the cigars from damaging, but there's more to it than just that.
No, especially it's you know, when we had so the story of cellophane started when we left Cuba in '89, and we started production Dominican in 1991. the first batch of cigars arrived in Basel, and they have all been cellophaned. And then Dr. Schneider at the time said, but why cellophane? You know, because we haven't used to cellophane due to the fact that we have been in Cuba. And then Henke was basically apologizing, say, oh, sorry, for us cellophane is so normal, we sent everything with cellophane. But at the end, Dr. Schneider was so convinced and so happy with the cellophane, he said, no, please, let's make them with cellophane because hygienic reasons, especially in the US market, we tried with Puro de Oro, we had in boxes of 25 without cellophane, and it was just not working in the US because they really required the cellophane around the cigars. So yes, you have hygienic reasons, you have the protection. The cellophane is also letting the cigar breathe. So there are like little pores or little holes in there. And that's when I always say, when people asking me, so how should I age my cigars, with or without cellophane? I basically explain them that without cellophane, the cigar is more exposed to your environment in the humidor, is aging a little bit quicker. And with cellophane, it's because the cellophane is a little bit giving you like kind of another skin and protecting a bit from the environment, is aging a bit slower. And according to a lot of books that I read about it, saying that the cigars is keeping more the aroma when you have cellophane around it when you age the cigars.
Tobias, you wanted to say something?
Hello. It's blatantly stupid. It's not as professional. But when you're doing a stock take of a big humidor, who multiple people use and work, and sometimes the staff, help themselves to cigars. So you have to do a monthly stock take. And you have cellophane. It's brilliant because you don't have to be handling them so preciously, especially, I used to have some Davidoff 4000s back in the day. That's brilliant, but very rare nowadays. But it's nice and easy. So exactly the handling is a gorgeous thing. If you want to take a pretty picture, then it's fine. You can remove the cellophane, but it's really useful. I quite like cellophane, actually. It's a bit more plastic, pollution. But on the other hand, if the cigar is ruined, that's a lot of pollution and a lot of, extra, carbon going wasted. So that's it. Stock take.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tobias. Yeah, and I think
I'm sorry. Go on.
No, what I'm just saying, that there are some retailers, they're all removing the cellophane from the cigars because of the smell in the humidor, also because of the look of the wrapper, which, with the cellophane, you can't, well, you see, you can't really appreciate the nice oiliness or the nice shininess of a wrapper because of the cellophane. So that's why a lot of them taking it off. But I agree with Tobias, it's very practical, And also in the US, we can do an EN code we do on the cellophane, so the retailer can just scan the cigar, it's in the system. It's very practical.
I think, Ricardo, you wanted to ask a question or make a comment?
Yes, thank you very much, Roy. Always a
pleasure
to be here. And good to see you as well, Sam.
Hello.
Really happy. And I couldn't let this go and not join. I mean, last time I was learning a lot from you, but it was from the Dominican front. So I love today I get to learn a lot more about the Nicaraguan front. So that's fantastic. And I'm really happy that, you took that project and took your chances on Nicaragua, and it paid off clearly. In terms of what was produced. I think there's so much, the depth as well of the variety of terroir that we have, right, from volcanic islands, and then we have the actual mountains in the north. I think is very unique to what other island nations would have in terms of the repertoire of variety of flavors. And I think that's beautiful that you've been able to blend those in such a nice way. I have to say I'm also a huge fan of box press, and I guess I'm very biased. Must be my fingers must have grown on with a certain level of DNA that it's easier for me to hold them rather than the run ones. Now, as things have gone, and I'm hearing a lot from distributors and importers and retailers, and the significantly good impact to an extent what the situation has had so far in terms of their online sales. And I'm keeping an eye on seeing how different brands, some more traditional, some more kind of modern, newer ones, are sort of looking more into the digital side of things, into how they're connecting, how they're reaching out, how they're presenting themselves, and sort of capitalizing a little more into the sort of newer consumer, newer generations, which seem to be more open to go online and try different things, which to an extent is really helpful for the new world cigars. rather than perhaps going more traditionally to their local store, which we wanted to do. But sometimes they can make their own sort of discoveries, not always tailored by the knowledge of people at the store, which is always very important. Have you guys, and maybe this is more the marketing side, are you sort of looking at those trends and perhaps how Davidoff can sort of react, being a very traditional but being a very cool brand in that sense, to this online digital opportunities that are coming at? I mean, first of all, have you noticed that in your sales? And are you giving it some thought into how to capitalize more on that side of basically a new additional weapon, really, or a toolkit, tool within the toolkit for sales?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting, well, a lot of interesting points you mentioned, because I think, yes, the cigar industry is getting more digital. You know, I think if you look at it in general, it's still a little bit, I don't want to say conservative, you know, but we still love, you know, like going to the retail, touching the cigar, looking at it, you know, the wooden boxes and so on. But we have focused a lot the last years about digital. So even on the Instagram channel that we have the Facebook page, also e-commerce stores now in the US, in Switzerland, and in Germany. And I believe, and you're right, you know, you're reaching basically different styles of consumers, you know, because what you want to do is you want to inform yourself before buying any cigar, before maybe also liking a brand. And I think on digital, you can very well explain all the philosophy behind, you know, you can present the product, you can be interactive with each other. And I noticed, and a lot of retailers as well, you know, the cigar aficionado today is very, very knowledgeable, you know, he knows a lot. The questions are going a little bit more deeper into the tobacco world. And I believe the reason why is also the digital world, because it's reaching out a lot of consumers, and now with, for example, with the virtual tasting that we're doing today, or with different ones we did via Instagram or Facebook, you know, if somebody has a question, everybody gets to know the answer. Whereas, for example, on the event, maybe you're just talking to one person, and all the other ones, they don't get to know the answer. And I think also the questions in this digital world are much more precise, because you can take your time, you read what are the questions of the other people, and I think the added value is huge, you know. And for me, yes, I have an Instagram account or Facebook, but I'm not so active, like, for example, as Roy is. But I try to be, and also embracing this world. Yes.
No, well, thank you, well done. Absolutely, I think that's where in many ways it's an addition to the tool and the elements that you can use. And of course, when you have people like Mitchell and Paul and the guys from C.Gars doing an amazing job, it's just an added bonus to the sales stream. So, but thank you, and always a pleasure to see you, Sam.
Thank you, Ricardo. Thank you. Likewise.
I think Tom had a question for you, actually, Ricardo. If you have a hairdresser at the embassy, because your hair looks so good.
No, I don't. It's just optics. It's the angle.
That's what it is.
You don't want to see me in person just yet.
Gaz had a question, but his microphone is not working, so I'll ask it for him. What's the production of the box press cigar compared to other Davidoff cigars? So how many do we produce a year compared to other lines, and which Davidoff cigars produce the most?
So box press, we are a little bit lower. I don't have the exact figures with me, unfortunately, but a little bit lower than the normal Nicaragua cigars. Also, we only have two formats now in the Robusto and Toro. But if you look at the cigars produced the most, it's still our core cigars, and number one is the Davidoff 2000, so a nice Corona format, and then followed by the number two, the Panetela format. So if you think about these formats, you would say, like, okay, maybe you thought about the Robusto or Toro format, but those are the two most produced cigars, and 2000 almost 50% more than the number two. So for me, it's always incredible, you know, because a lot of people are always asking, oh, give me a Robusto or Toro, but actually it's the Corona and the Panetela, which are our most produced cigars.
Do you think that's to do with the Robusto takes longer to smoke, so a Corona or Pantelis is a quicker smoke in that sense?
Yeah, but also those cigars have been very iconic. You know, they have been there since the beginning on all the events. We always introduce the 2000, number 2, or even today. You know, when you have a cigar lover that is maybe new to the world of cigars, you know, I'm always proposing to first try a 2000. You know, to get him a little bit also the cigar ritual, how to cut the cigar, how to light it, and to really make sure that the cigar is not overpowering him, that he wants to continue enjoying cigars. I think is very important. And so those cigars have always been there, and I think that's one of the reasons why people loving them so much.
How's it, the signature 2000? So one gets smoked every 30 seconds in the world?
Yes, true.
Yeah. It's quite a statistic.
Yes. So yeah, we try to calculate this, you know, and yeah.
So I know you go to Dominican Republic probably a few times a year. How often do you go to Nicaragua?
Well, Nicaragua, the last time I was well, let me think, it was 2 years ago on the Sabor Festival. But normally, because we don't have a factory in Nicaragua, I don't go often there. But if I go to Honduras, from Danlí to Estelí, it's around 2 hours, 2.5 drive. So sometimes we combine, we go there for 1 day, you know, visiting a bit the farms, especially Plasencia, having lunch with them, and then go back to Honduras. But it's not that I'm spending 1 week in Nicaragua, you know, it's just like short visits going there. But mainly focus is Dominican once, twice a year, and then Honduras. I try to be there once a year, yes.
Okay. And when the Nicaragua was developed, obviously you had to come up with a band and obviously the boxing. So they kind of stand out more than maybe the classic range. So who came up with the idea to do a black band instead of a white band, and to do the boxing the way it is?
So exactly. So we were thinking of so if we create a new line from Nicaragua, we really want to make it different versus the white ring, different in terms of taste, but also different in terms of how we present it. So we were clear that we call it internally the discovery pillar. Discovery, why? Because we discover different origins, we discover different tobacco varieties, and it's kind of like vibrant, you know, it's a little bit more younger, it's a little bit more fresh. That's why we're focusing on black. Black is, I think, black with the silver on it gives you like a little bit like a younger image, more sexy. And second ring with the volcanoes on it, you know, to give tribute to the origin of Nicaragua. And then also the boxes in black, you know, and we just wanted to make it different, you know, and really make it like a little bit more maybe more trendy than versus the core lines. And it was interesting when we launched first Nicaragua, the feedback was that basically, wow, I didn't know that the Davidoff is producing such amazing cigars. So basically, we had recruited consumers on Davidoff Discovery that never tried the core lines, you know, or that are not so familiar with our history, with our philosophy, with Zero Davidoff behind, but they just enjoyed the cigar. And that was interesting when we launched Escurio in 2015. Everybody was just comparing Nicaragua with Escurio, you know, and which I know that Mitchell loves the Escurio. I know this.
He covered his ears there. I think his screen froze.
You know, and this is kind of this vibrant pillar that we are so proud of to experience or to innovate in.
I think Matteo had a question. What do you like most about Nicaragua?
Me? So
yeah.
Personally, I have to say that what I love about Nicaragua is this kind of spiciness that it gives you. Spicy, peppery, but I have to say that when I have been in Nicaragua on a festival, I was trying a lot of different cigars, great cigars, but some of them are very, very strong, you know, like basically giving you this Nica kick, that the US obviously now there's a law about the Nicaraguan cigars, but for me sometimes if I tried a cigar, my tongue was like, you know, I couldn't even sense anymore anything. And I believe with our Davidoff cigar, you have this kind of balance and creaminess in it, and I always call this a Davidoff signature in it that makes it nicely balanced, you know, not so strong or not so directly in your face. And that's something what I love about the tobaccos from Nicaragua. Plus, they're very authentic. So if you work with an Esteli or a Condega or Metepe, if you smoke them 100%, you can really feel the differences in the tobacco linked to the regions, which I think is very, very interesting.
And when you make pairing suggestions for each Davidoff cigar, so how did you come to floor the kind of rum, besides it being like a Nicaraguan, which maybe is an easy link, but how's the process for you when you try to pair a drink with a cigar?
So for me, I always concentrate on these, call it homogeneous pairing. So basically looking in the aromas of the cigar and looking in the aromas of your drink. So basically, if you know that, for example, the cigar here is kind of bitter, spicy, and sweet, well, if you look at a drink like Flor de Caña, you have this spiciness in it, you have the sweetness in it, and it's just working very well together. And this is something that that's always what I'm saying. If you enjoy a cigar, ask your retailer or look digital online. What are the tobacco components and how is the tobacco stimulating your palate? So he has mentioned Esteli with the spiciness, so you can go with a little bit maybe stronger drink or more spicy drink. If you look, for example, at the core cigars, you have the San Vicente tobacco, typical Dominican tobacco, giving a little nice acidity, you know, so you can easily pair it with a champagne, you know, with a white wine. So if you go with the same aromas in a cigar and drink, you normally never wrong. Of course, it depends. The drink should never overpower the cigar, or the cigar should never overpower your drink. So that's something kind of experience-wise that you need to figure out.
And how do you, or how have you developed your palate to? Now you showed in the presentation earlier, you know, the saltiness, the sweetness, the bitterness. So how have you developed your palate to be able to recognize all those different components in your palate?
Well, smoking. No, I'm saying that you know, well, what is very important to develop your palate is really to enjoy a cigar with concentration and with focus. And take your notes, you know. If you enjoy a cigar, and I always, I mean, a good exercise is if you're with friends, maybe somebody else who is not smoking takes off the ring of the cigars, you know, or put another ring on it, and you do it blind. Because whenever you do a blind tasting of a cigar, you focus so much more on the cigar, and the flavors and aromas you get out of a blind tasting, you can recognize them much longer than if you smoke a cigar with the ring, because the ring is really influencing you a lot. So blind taste, take your notes and really figure out which tobaccos are in the cigar and why a cigar is tasting woody, or why you have these peppery notes in it, you know. This is very important, because only when you know this tobacco gives you this stimulation, you can evolve your palate. I did it the same, you know. Of course, I'm a little bit more, how can I say, I'm more lucky and knowledgeable, because I'm working with Dominican and Honduras since now 8 years. So I get to know the tobacco. So when I see the blend on paper, I can more or less tell you what is the flavors or what is the impact on your palate of the cigar. But this you can easily also learn how to do it, you know. And another thing what I always recommend is doing the retrohale. So and enjoying or blowing out the smoke also from your nose, because you get so much more flavors and aromas of the cigar. And yeah, and just try always to maybe choose the same setting, if it's your room or your terrace, maybe do the same cut of the cigar, do the same lighting process, so you have a certain routine in it that you feel comfortable with, and then really focus on the cigar.
Can you explain a bit more about the retrohale? You know, I know I always tell people as well, you know, you have to retrohale to get more flavor out of the cigar. You don't have to, but yeah, it's advisable. And a lot of people, they don't feel confident in retrohaling. So if you had to give a tutorial on how to best retrohale, how would that look like?
Yeah, it's interesting. I was once reading an article that only 1 to 2% of the cigar smokers actually can do retrohaling, and that's why when I explain it, I don't want to force anybody. But it's just like basically what I always advise is you take 3 puffs and then you blow a little bit out from your mouth and then the rest through your nose. This is easier because sometimes people take just 1 puff and then they hold it and they don't know how to do it, to blow it out through the nose, you know, or they think you have to take it down on your lungs, which is not the case. But just if you try, you know, even if you have, like, for example, I don't know, like a candy in your mouth and candy is tasting the Coca-Cola, and you close your nose, it's just basically sweet. You don't get the aroma of the candy. But by opening your nose and the whole spectrum of your palate, you get the Coca-Cola flavor. So, but what I'm saying is basically, you have more intense aromas in your nose that you don't have on your palate. Which for me, I always enjoy a cigar with the nose as well. I know at the beginning might be a little bit more, how can I say, peppery, but after a certain time, you get used to it.
The burning sensation, normally on the first, first retrohale. How much, I know that you come from a hospitality background before you joined Davidoff. So how much do you think that your hospitality background has impacted your job now in terms of being able to recognize the flavors and in the different types of tobacco?
I believe that working in hospitality industry, you know, when you work closely, I was in F&B, same as you, Roy. So, you know, basically it's all about concentration or focus on food, wine, how does each ingredients reacting with each other, and understanding this, and also how a cigar is composed. You know, all the tobacco, when you do the blending of a cigar, all the tobaccos have to harmonize with each other. And this basically you learn already, you know, when you are mixing a cocktail, for example, you know that you have your base, be it vodka, whiskey, or gin, and you know how each additional liquor is just like blending in. And this helped me a lot to understand the whole process, but also focusing and remembering the flavors. I think that is something that is, it's difficult, yes, but if you're working in hospitality and you have to explain a certain dish, you have to explain the sauce, or what is the sauce, how is the sauce impacting your meat, for example, or the fish. This is something that you focus on, and then when it comes to cigars, you can do the same, you know. You focus so much more on the tobaccos and what is the role of each tobacco in a cigar.
One question I also want to ask is, if you had to create the Davidoff Nicaragua now compared to when you did it, what is it you would change?
With the Nicaragua, I wouldn't change anything, to be honest.
No.
Not because I'm working for Davidoff, but I just think that I think the aromas are very easy to filter out. I believe it's not too strong. I think it's nice creaminess balance to it, which is incredible, you know. And this you get with the if you give the right time to each of the tobaccos, by letting it age, by do the proper fermentation. And to be honest, I wouldn't change anything. I wouldn't make it stronger. I wouldn't make it spicier. I think for me it's just perfect.
And in terms of the process, that was the first kind of big project you were involved in when you joined Davidoff. What was the biggest learning for you in that process?
The learning is really to convince our people internally, especially in the factories, that we need to blend cigars for you guys, for our cigar lovers, and not for us, you know. And that was kind of, because imagine before, the factory or the master blenders, Henke and the team, or Eladio and the team, basically they blended a new cigar, send it to Switzerland, to bars, and say, look, this is your new cigar, you know, sell it. And with Nicaragua, we turned the process around. We gave them basically our inputs on how to do it, which at the beginning was kind of difficult because they felt like, why are you telling us how to do our job, you know? But if you look at it from a consumer perspective, it was very necessary. And using Nicaragua tobacco for the first time and having convinced them about it was really also an eye-opener for them, because since that moment, I received so many new blends of Nicaragua tobacco, and I was calling them and said, oh, I thought you didn't like it, and said, no, we love it very much, you know, and giving you new taste stimulations, aromas, and they were super happy with it, yes.
So you're quite involved in the blending side of things, not only for the Nicaragua, but for many of the Davidoff new blends. And also you work then with Henke and Eladio. Now them with their world of knowledge, and you maybe being a bit younger in that sense. How difficult is it to convince them to do something in a particular way?
Well, I can tell you at the beginning it was kind of difficult because, as you mentioned, there's the young guy, the young buck, sitting there, and then Eladio gave me the cigars, and I was smoking them and looking at me like, okay, what is he going to tell me, and basically I just focus on my senses, on my palate, and I remember at the beginning I was like kind of, oh, this one is chocolate, coffee, and all the flavors, and he looks at me and said, but why are you talking about aromas? Isn't it balancing the whole palate or stimulating the whole palate? I said, yes, it is. But what our consumers are looking for is also giving you hints about aromas and flavors for them to make you like your own perception about the cigar. And that was something that then they also learned. We then developed all the aroma wheels, and after time, I was then also in a position to maybe give a little bit advice. Why don't you try this tobacco, And then they said, okay, they tried it, okay, they liked it. And then when we got the ratings from the markets or the feedback from our consumers, they knew that, okay, by focusing on really on what the consumer wants, is really helping the brand or helping the company. And that was what we developed over time. And now we are just working perfectly together, and but still, when I'm enjoying a cigar and I don't like it as much as Eladio, he always says, "Ay, these people from Luxembourg, they can't smoke."
So, what would you say? What have you learned the most from Eladio and Henke?
For me, because I'm working very closely with Eladio, our master blender, for me, what I'm learning is really his ability to mix tobaccos, or how the tobacco is harmonizing with each other. So he can change one leaf and you have a different cigar. You can change the grades in a cigar and you have a different stimulation. And for me, this is something I admire this a lot. Sometimes when I'm in the factory and we're working, and he comes in the morning and he says, "Oh, you know what? I was dreaming about the blend." And he takes his paper, he's noting down the blend, called the cigar roller who's doing then the blend for him. And then basically you try the cigar, and he's sharing his thoughts with you, why he chose this tobacco. And for me, this is like, I admire a lot, to have this ability to really go into these details, tobacco variety, the age of the tobacco, and how these tobacco leaves are just harmonizing with each other, giving you a super interesting cigar. This is something for me, and what Eladio always says, there is always a solution. So whatever you're looking for in a cigar, he can do it. And I think that is, just a great personality of him.
To Tom, a question: do we have any more peppery cigars in the pipeline?
Peppery, yes. Peppery, we have some for next year. Tom, I hope that maybe we see each other or like this, and we can try the cigar together. I remember this, Tom and Peppery. Yes, there will be some Peppery, especially maybe more from Dominican tobaccos, the stronger ones that we're using. And me too, I like the Peppery, especially like a little bit more in the nose, it's giving a kind of personality to the cigar, which I admire also a lot. So there is a Peppery coming next year.
What would you say is the biggest difference between Dominican tobacco and Nicaraguan tobacco?
Well, if you look at the raw tobacco already, the Nicaraguan is a little bit more oily. It has a little bit thicker structure. That's also why, if you ask me versus Dominican tobacco, so if you ask me when I want to age my cigar, I recommend you do the aging more with Nicaraguan, with, for example, Davidoff Nicaragua or Yamasa, who has 30% Nicaragua in there, or even Escurio. Those thickness of tobaccos are responsible to make the cigar, to let the cigar age better, in a way better, just to notice the difference over the years. Compare with a Bordeaux wine. A Bordeaux wine you can easily age for 15 years, and you can see it gets more subtle, it gets more round. Of course, we have all very aged tobaccos in the cigars already, minimum of 3 years. But still, if you compare, for example, I don't know, a 2000, which I can compare more like a Pinot Noir that is not aging so well, or you can't recognize the difference so well, versus Nicaragua, you can see that Nicaragua is aging better than, for example, Dominican tobaccos, which are not so oily or not so thick in their structure of the leaf.
I think somebody asked earlier about aging of the Nicaragua, for example, and Mitchell kind of already responded to that. So they're ready to smoke straight away, which is true. But if you had to age the Nicaragua, so what would be your recommendations in terms of length and conditions?
Well, you know, there is really like a general, how can I say, age recommendation. What I always say is buy a box, store your box, and then try maybe 2 cigars, one cigar half a year, and then another one the other. So 2 cigars in a year, and see how it is aging or how the cigar is changing. I say that Tom said for 5 years. 5 years is good. If you take 5 years and basically in the 5 years, every year you try the cigars again. You know, you can see how the cigar is evolving or how it gets more rounder. You know, it gets more subtle in a way. But then again, you have to figure out if you like this, because a lot of people maybe they want to have the cigar a little bit more fresher, you know, versus aged cigars. So it all depends. But I would say 5 years is a good how can I say, aim.
It's a good indication.
Yeah, it's a good indication, exactly. If you go over 5 years, go to 10 years and above, then I think you have really to be like a connoisseur expert in this area to really see how the cigar is aging, and then again, you know, how is it stored. You know, you shouldn't have any variation in temperature, in humidity, in the humidor to guarantee that the cigar is really evenly aged in the humidor, which is also a very important factor when you age your cigars.
Daniel had another question asking if Davidoff has anything in the range that use a Maduro wrapper, and if not,
yeah. So Maduro wrapper, I got the question quite often, to be honest, especially now. We had the Davidoff Maduro range, Corona, Robusto, and Toro, which we had to discontinue, unfortunately. But it was very well appreciated, Maduro wrapper, and also this one. I remember the Toro got 95, I think, in Cigar Journal, very highly rated. But you know, having said this, there is no reason why we shouldn't bring back the Maduro wrapper. Exactly, as Tom said, Griffin's Maduro was a very nice cigar. We have recently launched the Avo Maduro in US. I believe, Roy, it's coming also to Europe, right?
I believe it was US only.
I think that Germany is importing it. Because I got a question about it today, and again, so it also here we're playing with the Maduro wrapper. So I think Maduro can be very interesting in the future, maybe to have again a Maduro cigar under the brand of Davidoff, maybe.
Matteo had a question which mainly is linked, not necessarily to the Nicaragua, more to the Camacho barrel aged, because he works for Floricana, and he wants to know how long does the tobacco get aged in the Floricana barrel, and if it's the 25-year-old, and also after that how the tobacco gets treated prior to use or finish.
So what we do is we don't. So we have 5 to 6 months maximum that we. So basically, what we do is we ferment the tobacco in the barrel in the casks. You know, so. You have to imagine the tobacco is a little bit fermented, then it goes to the last fermentation in the barrels, and basically we're shifting the leaves every 2 weeks to guarantee that basically, you know, our fermentation is done. So you take the leaves outside, you put them inside, the leaves inside, outside when you reach 50 degrees Celsius, and the same is done in the barrels. We have experienced that 5 to 6 months is the ideal time that the tobacco is taking on the flavors, but without overpowering or without giving too much flavor in the final cigar. So once it's fermented in the barrel age, it gets to the resting area, the same as the normal tobacco, and then basically we craft it in the cigar. And it's a very interesting process. And also depending on the barrels, we had bourbon for Camacho, we have the rum for Camacho Nicaragua, we have the whiskey barrels for Winston late hour, and you can see the differences in taste, you know, which is very interesting. Yes.
Kind of staying a little bit with the Nicaraguan team, and also a little bit with Camacho, because there's a Camacho Nicaragua coming out soon.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell a little bit more about that?
So the Camacho Nicaragua is basically, you know, again, looking at Camacho as a brand, using mainly tobaccos from Honduras. We thought also here it's time to launch a Camacho Nicaragua cigar, whereas majority of the tobaccos are Nicaragua, but this time combined also with Honduran tobacco, which gives you another kind of level of spiciness, of peppery. Again, Tom, this would be a great cigar for you, the Camacho Nicaragua, just to try. And I think it's interesting, you know, having this, how can I say, Honduras has a kind of difficult spiciness to it than Nicaragua tobacco. And if you mingle those, it's really interesting aspect, or an interesting flavor profile that you get.
Yeah, that should be coming in. I think Camacho Nicaragua is probably coming in the next 2 months, I think, for the UK. So that'll be one to look out for, especially Tom, as Sam said, for people who like a little bit more strength, maybe in the cigars, a bit more pepper.
Yes.
When you do a tasting of cigars, how many people are normally involved?
Tasting, so the process maybe of the blending process, when I can explain this, is basically I get a concept from global marketing, which I'm working in, and so basically together we look how can a cigar match the concept that we want to achieve, you know. For example, let's take the example of we want to create a cigar that has peppery notes. It has to be some Nicaragua tobacco in it, or only Dominican. You know, these all the kind of inputs that we give at the beginning. I then write the kind of a cigar brief to our master blenders, and they, you imagine like a cook, you know, you give them advice what you want to have as a dish, and he's basically cooking it for you. And the same with our master blenders. So basically they are then sending me samples back to Basel, and I organize an internal tasting panels with members internally that are working for Davidoff, that has very good palate, but also external people, very important, because as I said, the cigar needs to taste our cigar aficionado, not only ourselves. And here we have 12 members, also some of the board, of the family of Davidoff. And then basically we try the cigar against the concept. The cigar has really to match the concept. So if the cigar doesn't have any peppery notes in it, we do another round of samples to make sure that we achieve what we want to get. When it gets more difficult, like with Nicaragua, where we are maybe not so used to this, then I also do external tasting panels to really get only external feedback, which is also very much helping. And then in the factories, we have also a master blending competence center of 12 people from the factories that they're also trying cigars. So we have different panels before we validate the blends.
And Tom also wants to know a bit more about the Avo Nicaragua.
The Avo Nicaragua, the first one we did, the Cinco Nicaragua has, I think it's 21.5% of Nicaraguan tobacco, and blended with the Dominican one. And you see that Avo Nicaragua one gives you a little spiciness, but it's very, very creamy. And this is what we wanted to achieve with Avo, because we know that our Avo cigar lovers, they appreciate this little creaminess in the cigar, not being too strong, very enjoyable, kind of Avo the person who he was. And that was the aim of the Nicaragua. Yes, using some Nicaragua, but make sure that it stays creamy and very well balanced.
Perfect. Does anybody have any more questions? If not, then I think we've talked about Davidoff Nicaragua all we can talk about, I think. Unless you have another trick up your sleeve, Sam.
No, I think I told everything what was in the process, you know, and as I said, you know, imagine if you have to develop a blend, it's always an interesting journey, you know, like with the failures or with the with the success you have behind, you know. But it's always great to at the end get a great feedback, like today, that you guys are loving the box press, for example, and the flavors in the Nicaraguan. I think that is kind of really motivating us all, you know, to keep on creating exciting and new blends. Yes.
Perfect. Well, Sam, thank you for your time and for your knowledge, as always.
A pleasure.
Paul, is there anything else you want to add?
Just to mention, next week's virtual Herf is Drew Estate. Special guest is Jonathan Drew's going to be joining the call, so certainly a character from within the industry, and a unique opportunity to ask somebody like Jonathan many interesting questions. So go to the website, you can pick up your samplers, and we'll have them shipped out to you before next Thursday.
Yep. And in 2 weeks, in the 2 weeks time, we have an AVO session for the improvisation 2019 versus 2020. So that should also be a good one.
Yeah. So the stock for the AVO improvisation 2020 should be here next week. So there's only going to be a short window to get that stock out for the call, but you can pre-order that one, and as soon as the stock gets in, we'll have it shipped out to everybody.
Perfect. Thank you all for joining. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you.
Thanks, Roy.
Again,
everybody.
Appreciated. Thank you, Paul, and thanks to everybody else for joining. It's been another lovely tasting, another virtual tasting.
Exactly.
I'll wait for the next one. Adios.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mitchell.
Have a good night.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Cheers.